In the unrelenting heat of Ouagadougou, President Ibrahim Traoré stared out the window of his office, watching dust particles dance in the afternoon sunlight. The air conditioning hummed ineffectively against the African summer. At 35, he was one of the world's youngest heads of state, a distinction that brought equal measures of admiration and skepticism. Running a hand over his close-cropped hair, he turned back to the contract spread across his desk. "Mr. President, GlobalTech representatives are waiting in the conference room," announced Fatima Coulibaly, his chief of staff. Her usual confident demeanor seemed strained today. "Tell me again why we're considering this proposal," Ibrahim said, flipping through the glossy pages emblazoned with the blue and silver GlobalTech logo. Fatima stepped fully into the room, closing the door behind her. The digital infrastructure program would connect our most remote villages to high-speed internet, schools, hospitals, government offices, all linked. GlobalTech is offering to build it at 1/5 the cost of their competitors. Ibrahim nodded slowly. "When something sounds too good to be true. It usually is," Fatima finished, "but the cabinet is enthusiastic, especially Dr. Diallo. The technology minister says this could advance our digital economy by a decade overnight." Ibrahim rose from his chair, straightening his tailored suit, a concession to diplomatic protocol he'd never quite grown comfortable with after years in military fatigues. "Let's not keep our American friends waiting," he said. In the hallway, he noticed something odd. The usual guards had been replaced with unfamiliar faces. Ibrahim made a mental note to ask about the schedule change later. The conference room fell silent as he entered. 3 Americans stood to greet him: Jason Reynolds, GlobalTech's Senior Vice President for International Development; Melissa Chang, their legal director; and a man introduced only as Mr. Grayson, security consultant. President Traoré, Reynolds smiled broadly, extending his hand. "It's an honor to meet Burkina Faso's visionary leader." Ibrahim noted the practiced smoothness of the compliment as he shook Reynolds' hand. "The honor is mine. It's not every day Silicon Valley takes such interest in West Africa." Something flickered across Reynolds' face, surprise, perhaps, that Ibrahim wasn't simply grateful for their attention. "GlobalTech sees tremendous potential in Burkina Faso," Chang added, her voice professionally warm. "Your country could become a model for digital transformation across the continent." As they all took their seats, Ibrahim noticed Grayson hadn't spoken, his eyes constantly scanning the room, resting momentarily on the presidential security detail before returning to Ibrahim. Dr. Aisha Diallo, the technology minister, entered hurriedly, apologizing for her lateness. A brilliant woman with degrees from MIT and Oxford, she had returned to Burkina Faso after a successful career in Europe, determined to help modernize her homeland. "I was just reviewing the technical specifications," she said, her excitement evident. "President Traoré, this program is precisely what we've been seeking." The meeting progressed with polished presentations and impressive projections: 5,000 miles of fiber optic cable, 300 new cellular towers, computer labs in 2,000 schools. Numbers that dazzled and promises that enticed. Ibrahim listened carefully, asking occasional questions about implementation timelines and local workforce training. But something kept nagging at him, an instinct honed during his military years. "And the data governance protocols?" he asked during a momentary pause. "Who maintains sovereignty over the information traveling through this network?" Reynolds and Chang exchanged quick glances before Reynolds answered smoothly. "Standard industry agreements, Mr. President, nothing unusual." Ibrahim leaned forward. "I'd like our cybersecurity team to review the protocols in detail." "Of course," Reynolds nodded too quickly, "though we're hoping to finalize the agreement during our visit. Your neighbors in Ghana are very interested if Burkina Faso decides to pass." Ibrahim recognized the tactic: create urgency, imply competition. He'd seen it before in military negotiations with foreign powers. "We'll need 48 hours, he said firmly. "My country's digital future deserves at least that much consideration." As the meeting concluded, Grayson finally spoke, addressing Ibrahim directly as others gathered their materials. "Impressive security detail, Mr. President, former Special Forces." Ibrahim met the man's calculating gaze. "We've learned to protect what matters most to us, Mr. Grayson. Haven't we all?" Grayson replied with a thin smile that never reached his eyes. Later that evening, alone in his office, Ibrahim pulled up the contract on his secure computer. Something about Reynolds' eagerness to avoid technical scrutiny troubled him. He began reading the dense legal language, paying special attention to the sections on data management. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "The eagle doesn't bargain with the snake about its nest." Ibrahim stared at the cryptic message. Before he could consider its meaning, Fatima burst in without knocking. "Sir, there's been a security breach at the Ministry of Defense. Someone's accessed our military personnel files." Ibrahim felt his body tense, military instincts kicking in. "When? Minutes ago. The cyber team is tracking the intrusion now. Get Dr. Diallo here immediately." As Fatima left, Ibrahim's phone buzzed again. Not all gifts are given freely. Check Appendix C, Paragraph 16. Ibrahim quickly navigated to the referenced section in the contract. Buried in technical jargon was a clause granting GlobalTech unrestricted access to network traffic data for service optimization purposes. His jaw clenched. Service optimization, a convenient euphemism for unlimited surveillance. When Dr. Diallo arrived, her usual composure was shaken. "The breach originated from our main government server," she reported. "Whoever did this had high-level access codes. Could it be connected to GlobalTech?" Ibrahim asked. Dr. Diallo hesitated. "I don't see how. They don't have access to our systems yet." "Yet," Ibrahim repeated pointedly. "What do we know about this company beyond their presentations? They're the fourth largest tech company in America. Their CEO, Richard Westfield, is considered a visionary. They've implemented similar programs in Southeast Asia and parts of Latin America. And have you spoken with officials from those countries? Not the ministers who signed the contracts, the cybersecurity experts." Dr. Diallo's silence was answer enough. Ibrahim's phone buzzed a third time. "Tomorrow, National Library. 10 a.m. Come alone if you want the truth." The National Library stood as a symbol of Burkina Faso's intellectual renaissance, its modern architecture contrasting with the colonial buildings surrounding it. Ibrahim arrived in an unmarked car, having slipped his security detail with maneuvers learned during his military days. Inside, the library was nearly empty. He navigated through the stacks toward the reference section as instructed in a follow-up text. A woman sat alone at a corner table, her attention focused on a laptop. She wore simple jeans and a black t-shirt with the words "Code Speaks Truth" across the front. As Ibrahim approached, she spoke without looking up. "You're punctual. I appreciate that in a president." Her American accent surprised him. Even more surprising was her youth. She couldn't be more than 30. "You have me at a disadvantage," he said, taking the seat across from her. Maya Johnson, cybersecurity specialist and digital rights activist. She finally looked up, her eyes sharp and assessing. "Also the person who just saved your country from becoming GlobalTech's newest digital colony." Ibrahim maintained his composure. "Those are significant claims. I have significant evidence." She turned her laptop toward him. "This is what GlobalTech did in Myanmar, and Ecuador, and Vietnam." Ibrahim leaned forward, studying the screen. Classified reports, internal emails, and data analyses scrolled before him, all documenting how GlobalTech had built digital infrastructure in developing nations, then used it to harvest massive amounts of data sold to corporations and governments worldwide. In Ecuador, they collected biometric data from 5 million citizens through free government services. Maya continued. In Vietnam, they monitored political dissidents for the government. The technology they're offering you is backdoors built into its core architecture. How did you access these documents? Ibrahim asked, his military mind assessing her as both a potential ally and threat. "I used to work for them." Maya's expression hardened. I designed some of these systems before I understood how they'd be used. Now I work to expose them. Why Burkina Faso? Why contact me? Maya closed her laptop. Because you're next on their expansion map, and because you have something they desperately want, which is access to the Pan-African mineral database your government has been building. The geological survey data alone is worth billions to the right mining companies. She leaned forward. GlobalTech isn't just a tech company anymore. They're an information broker with clients ranging from multinational corporations to intelligence agencies. Ibrahim considered her words carefully. These are serious accusations against a powerful American corporation. What would you have me do? Reject their offer? Publicly? Make it clear why. Then work with regional partners to build your own sovereign digital infrastructure. That's easier said than done. We lack the resources. You lack financial resources, Maya interrupted, but you have human resources. Burkina Faso has some of the best young coders I've encountered. What you need is a different model, distributed, community-owned networks rather than centralized corporate infrastructure. Ibrahim studied her face, looking for deception and finding none. How do I know I can trust you? Maya held his gaze. You don't. But ask yourself, what does an African-American tech specialist with no connection to Burkina Faso gain by lying to you? Before Ibrahim could respond, his phone vibrated. A text from Fatima. Where are you? GlobalTech representatives demanding emergency meeting. Claiming data security incident. They know, Maya said, glimpsing the message. Someone tipped them off about the leaked documents. You need to decide now whose side you're on. Ibrahim stood. I need to return to my office. They'll try to contain this, Maya warned. Discredit me. Pressure you into signing immediately. Classic crisis management. Ibrahim paused. Come with me. Maya blinked in surprise. To your office, the presidential palace? If what you're saying is true, I want GlobalTech to see exactly who I'm listening to. A slow smile spread across Maya's face. Mr. President, that's either the bravest or most reckless thing I've heard a politician say. In my experience, Ibrahim replied, the important decisions are often both. Richard Westfield's face filled the video conference screen, his California tan contrasting with the cold fury in his eyes. Behind him, the San Francisco skyline gleamed in morning light, a reminder of the 9-hour time difference and how quickly GlobalTech had mobilized its response. President Traoré, Westfield's voice was controlled but tight. I'm disappointed that corporate espionage has interfered with our good faith negotiations. Ibrahim sat calmly at the head of the conference table. To his right sat Dr. Diallo and Fatima. To his left, Maya Johnson, whose presence had caused visible shock among the GlobalTech representatives. Mr. Westfield, Ibrahim replied, I'm disappointed that surveillance capabilities were hidden in your proposal. Westfield's practiced expression faltered slightly. Those allegations are baseless. Ms. Johnson is a disgruntled former employee facing multiple criminal charges in the United States. She has no credibility. Interesting, Maya replied coolly, because I've never been charged with anything. But if you'd like to discuss criminal activity, let's talk about GlobalTech's violations of the EU's General Data Protection Regulation, or the class action lawsuit your company quietly settled in Brazil. Ibrahim raised a hand for silence. Mr. Westfield, whether Ms. Johnson's accusations are true or not, they've raised concerns that require additional scrutiny. We'll need to postpone signing until an independent assessment can be conducted. That would be a grave mistake. Westfield's voice hardened. This offer expires today. Furthermore, I've been in contact with representatives from your treasury. Your government's financial situation makes our generous terms a necessity, not a luxury. Ibrahim felt the weight of the implied threat. Burkina Faso's economy was indeed fragile. The GlobalTech deal had been seen as a much-needed investment. Are you suggesting that my country's sovereignty is worth less than your shareholders' profits? Ibrahim asked quietly. I'm suggesting that pragmatism should prevail over unfounded paranoia, Westfield countered. From the corner of his eye, Ibrahim noticed Grayson typing rapidly on his phone. Moments later, Fatima's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, her expression changing to alarm. "Mr. President," she whispered, "the finance minister just received notification that the World Bank is reconsidering our pending loan application due to governance concerns." Ibrahim maintained his composure despite the coordinated pressure. "Mr. Westfield, I believe this concludes our discussion. Your representatives will receive our formal response within 24 hours." After ending the call, the room erupted in tense conversation. Dr. Diallo argued passionately about the technological opportunity they were risking. The finance minister, summoned hastily, warned about economic repercussions. Ibrahim listened to all sides before raising his hand for silence. "We face a fundamental question," he said. "Is digital advancement worth sacrificing our sovereignty? I've made my decision." He turned to Maya. "Ms. Johnson, you mentioned an alternative approach. I want details, feasibility, timeline, costs." "Mr. President," the finance minister protested, "we can't base national policy on the word of a foreign activist with no official standing." "Actually," Maya interjected, opening her laptop, "I have more than words. I have a complete framework for a sovereign digital infrastructure developed in collaboration with technologists from across Africa. We call it the Digital Ubuntu Initiative." For the next hour, Maya outlined a vision that contrasted sharply with GlobalTech's approach. Instead of centralized infrastructure owned by foreign corporations, she proposed community-owned networks, open-source software, and data governance protocols that kept information in African hands. "The upfront costs are higher," she acknowledged, "but you maintain control, no backdoors, no hidden surveillance. And most importantly, the skills and technology stay in Burkina Faso." Ibrahim studied the faces around the table: skepticism, hope, fear, determination. He recognized the weight of the moment. This wasn't just about internet access. It was about his country's future in the digital age. "We'll need international partners," he said finally. "Allies who respect our sovereignty." Maya nodded. "They exist. I've worked with ethical tech cooperatives in Scandinavia, open-source communities in Latin America, digital rights foundations willing to provide grants rather than loans with strings attached." Ibrahim stood, decision made. "Dr. Diallo, work with Ms. Johnson to develop a comprehensive implementation plan. Fatima, prepare a public statement explaining our decision to reject GlobalTech's offer. Finance Minister, begin exploring the alternative funding sources Ms. Johnson has identified." As the meeting dispersed, Grayson lingered, approaching Ibrahim with practiced casualness. "Bold choice, Mr. President," he said quietly, though some in Washington might view it as unfriendly to American business interests. Ibrahim met his gaze steadily. "My responsibility is to the people of Burkina Faso, not American business interests." Of course, Grayson smiled thinly. "Just remember, countries with limited resources need powerful friends." "We prefer equal partners to powerful friends," Ibrahim replied. "Good day, Mr. Grayson." After everyone departed, Maya remained, watching Ibrahim with newfound respect. "That took courage," she said. "Courage is less difficult when the right path is clear," he replied. "The question now is implementation. Words without action are merely good intentions." Maya nodded. "True. But sometimes words are the spark that starts the fire." 6 months later, Ibrahim stood in Bobo Dialaso's main square, watching as local technicians installed solar-powered mesh network nodes on community buildings. Children gathered around, curious about the equipment that would soon connect their school to the internet. The path hadn't been easy. As predicted, refusing GlobalTech had triggered repercussions: diplomatic pressure, threatened aid reductions, economic headwinds. But Ibrahim had found unexpected allies. Other African nations, inspired by Burkina Faso's stance, had formed a digital sovereignty coalition. European privacy advocates had provided technical assistance and funding. Most surprisingly, ethical technologists from Silicon Valley itself, led by Maya, had volunteered their expertise. President Traoré called a young woman rushing toward him, Aminata Ouedraogo, director of the country's first tech incubator. "The satellite connection is active. We're ready for the inaugural transmission." Ibrahim followed her to a community center where dozens of young Burkina programmers had gathered around screens. On the main display, faces from across Africa and beyond waited in a video conference. Technology ministers from Ghana, Kenya, and Senegal, representatives from European digital rights organizations, and Maya Johnson, now coordinating the initiative from the newly established Africa Digital Sovereignty Lab in Nairobi. "Mr. President," one of the young programmers said, offering him a seat at the keyboard, "would you like to send the first message?" Ibrahim considered the significance of the moment. This network, built by Africans, governed by transparent protocols, secured against exploitation, represented something profound. Not just technology, but self-determination in the digital age. He typed simply, "Africa connects on Africa's terms." As applause erupted in the room and across the video feeds, Ibrahim caught Maya's smile on the screen. Their unlikely alliance had evolved into something neither had anticipated, a movement spreading across the continent. His phone buzzed with a news alert. GlobalTech stock had plummeted after internal documents revealed systematic privacy violations in their international programs. The expose cited anonymous sources within the company's African operations division. Ibrahim glanced at the screen where Maya was chatting animatedly with Kenyan developers. Some questions were better left unasked. Some allies operated more effectively in the shadows. Outside, the sun set over Bobo Dioulasso, casting long shadows across the square where technicians continued their work. Ibrahim watched as an elderly woman approached one of the young engineers, asking questions about the equipment. The young man knelt down, patiently explaining how the network would connect their community to the world on their terms. This, Ibrahim thought, was the true revolution, not just the technology itself, but the knowledge transfer, the ownership, the pride. In a world where data had become the new gold, Burkina Faso was learning to mine its own resources. The path forward would not be easy. Powerful interests had been challenged. But as Ibrahim watched his people building their digital future with their own hands, he knew some fights were worth the cost. True sovereignty in the modern age demanded nothing less.